and the good peoples can see us now. I love the hat,
All right.
by the way. The hat's
Thank you.
brilliant.
Thank you.
Turn my phone silent. Otherwise, I'll get every update from the damn football game tonight because ESPN Fantasy sends an update every time you're a player on your team goes into the red zone, whether they score or not. It's like, well, that's not
Great.
that's wonderfully not helpful because I don't care enough. Especially this week where basically my entire team just imploded and decided not to show up.
Oh, that's a bummer. My son has figured out the secret sauce for fantasy football.
Oh, yeah?
He manages other people's teams for them.
Ooh. See, now that's the way you do it.
So for at least one of them, he gets a percentage cut of if they win the season.
Well, Ace, I have Dak Prescott as my quarterback this week because Kyler Murray is on a bye. So I kind of am, but also I don't care enough. I only stay in this fantasy football league at this point because it's friends of mine that run it, and it's an excuse to get together with them a few times a year. Because we always get together for the draft and hang out at my friend Jim's house, and he goes and buys a stupid amount of Arby's and brings that home and puts out a spread for us during the thing, and then a couple times during the year we'll try to get together to watch a game somewhere. But other than that, like, I just don't care. I stopped caring about the NFL years ago.
Yeah, I never really got into it. My dad never played sports. He dropped out of high school when he was 14 to support his family because his dad passed away.
Oh, geez.
So he never played sports, so he never got into sports.
Mm-hmm.
So I never had watching the game with dad as a phenomenon. And so I went into high school and I played volleyball was the school sport I played.
Yeah, that makes a difference because I definitely grew up my dad playing everything, and I got out of the NFL because I grew up a Lions fan and watched them ruin the careers of two of the best players to ever play at their positions, and so I was like, all right, we're done. Like, when you waste the career of Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, I can't. Like, they're two of the best to ever play those positions, and they got nothing out of it. It's the worst franchise in professional sports, so I'll stick with my baseball.
To say the other thing is my high school didn't have a football team, and my college didn't have a football team, so I'd never gone to a football game, so I never got into it that way either. Sorry, I just saw one of my notes and I got distracted for a second.
Yes, Ace, two of the best. Barry Sanders is arguably, if not the best, the second best running back to ever play in the NFL. And Calvin Johnson is easily a top 5 wide receiver. And I will die on that hill. They're certainly both better than anybody that's suited up for the Pittsburgh Steelers at those particular positions. So
that sounds like direct fire.
That is direct fire. Because I'm not wrong. There is not a single running back in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers that is anywhere close to Barry Sanders. Not even close. Nor are there wide receivers that are as good. Lynn Swann was great. Lynn Swann is not Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson is a genetic freak. He is 6'5", 230 pounds, and should not be able to run and jump the way that he does at that size. Yeah, Harris and Bettis are good. They ain't no Barry Sanders. Anywho, we'll get on with the show. How's that sound? That sounds like fun.
Sounds good.
Because this is a movie worth talking about for some reasons we'll get into. I do believe. Let's see that. Can go there. And, I better make sure you can hear this properly. Where'd it go? That one.
I heard something.
Yep. And let's see. You are able to hear this.
That is like drinking sweaty butter.
I did hear that, yes.
Okay. Good. Then we have what we need, and we are ready to go. So if you're ready, I'm ready.
I am ready.
Okay. Well, in that case, then, we are going to get started in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, can I get another drink down here? I've been to prison once. I've been married twice. I was once drafted by Lyndon Johnson and had to live in shit-ass Mexico for 2.5 years for no reason. I've had my eye socket punched in, a kidney taken out, and I got a bone chip in my ankle that's never gonna heal. I've seen some pretty shitty situations in my life, but nothing has ever sucked more ass than this.
Okay, ready to go. Let's go.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically, we talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, a.k.a. TV's Travis. This is episode number 195. And our movie this week was 2003's Bad Santa. And joining me to talk about it, because he had never seen it before, it's Joe Houde. Joe, how you doing?
I am well, Travis. How are you doing?
Not too bad. So, all right. You'd never seen Bad Santa before. Were you familiar with it at all? Did you kind of have any idea?
Vaguely familiar with it. So, anyone seeing the video, I've got my Santa hat on. So does Ponce de Leon behind me. The Hood household goes hard for Christmas. We decorate all out. We sing the only music allowed in the house from the day after Thanksgiving until New Year's Day is Christmas carols. We're serious about Christmas. I was vaguely aware of this movie, and I was looking back actually at the various movies we've watched together for this show, and I've realized lots of them were movies that I hadn't seen, mainly because I was like, oh, that's interesting, but I don't know that it's for me. And that was always my thought about Bad Santa.
Sure.
And the movie did not change my opinion on that regard.
So, okay, so Bad Santa, 2003, stars Billy Bob Thornton, Tony Cox, and Bernie Mac, as well as John Ritter is in there, and what is her name?
I just called her Gilmore Girl in my notes, but
yes.
Lauren Graham.
Lauren Graham. And it's about a department store Santa Claus, and I use the name Santa Claus very loosely, who, along with his elf partner, rob department stores every year. That's the gist of it. He's a alcoholic, sexaholic, chain-smoking, foul-mouthed Santa Claus. This would have been right around the time that he was doing Bad News Bears, too, I think, Billy Bob Thornton had.
Oh, interesting.
I want to say it was right in that same kind of early 2000s thing. And it was directed by Terry Zwigoff and written by Glenn Ficarra and John Requa, and executive produced by the Coen brothers. It is a crass comedy, to say the least. It's interesting, though. There are no, well, with the exception of Brett Kelly as the kid, a.k.a. Thurman Merman, there are no likable characters in this movie at all. Maybe Bob Chapesca, but even he's like
John Ritter character.
Ritter. But even he's like kind of not.
He was barely a character.
That's true.
I would say Lauren Graham's character. She was also she was likable. She was never did anything unlikable, but she didn't have a lot of dimension to her.
No.
As well.
No.
Yeah, there was a lot of.
Go ahead.
There was a lot of unlikability floating around to the point where, there's that one moment Bernie Mac, who's playing the head of security for the mall.
Yep.
Steals a kid's MP3 player, which I am pretty sure on the screen was actually a Tamagotchi that they just said was a
MP3
player. But like I thought, well, and it turns out plot wise, he was as non-upstanding of a security officer as he played out to be. I mean,
Yeah.
his character arc actually was probably the the most thorough and like consistent one across the entire thing.
He was certainly the character that that you learned about the most by the end of it, right?
Right.
Because Billy Bob Thornton plays Willie, and Willie is basically the same person at the beginning of the movie and the end of it. The sound clip we played to start the show is the first lines spoken in the movie. So you know exactly what you're getting set up for by that. And he's that same guy all the way through. He has one small moment that we'll get to of kind of an epiphany and a little tiny bit of growth at the end, but not. He's so repugnant and he's such a terrible guy throughout so much of the movie that it's hard to care towards the end with what happens to him. But I think a lot of it is that's what the movie's going for too.
It's funny that you describe him that way. And when you played the audio this time, I remember it from watching the movie. I wasn't sure if after watching the whole thing and hearing that audio, if that audio was supposed to be happening to introduce him at the beginning of the movie or to introduce him at the end of the movie. Because like you said, there wasn't that much of a difference, and where he ends up could describe that decently.
really could. So yeah, it's tough to say.
Yeah, it was really interesting. One of the things that I kept on doing in my notes, and you talk about him not changing, as I was watching, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is the driving moment. I kept saying that multiple times. Like, you're getting worse. You're slowing down early on. When the very opening sequence where they do the first heist to set their characters and sort of introduce you to Willie and God, I can't remember what's the elf's name.
It's Marcus.
Willie and Marcus, right? They introduce Willie and Marcus through them heisting a department store on December 24th,
Yep.
and Willie says, "You're getting slow," and I'm like, "Okay, there's like, is that what's driving it? Like, what's happening? Driving the plot is going to be the Willie's lost his touch and he's going to regain it, and then
Right.
he goes, "I'm out." I was like, "Oh, is that the driving thing?" No, and then like I kept on going, and I was like, "Oh, John Ritter showed up. It's Bob Chapeska. Maybe he's the point that's going to save and turn the movie." No. All right, the Gilmore mom's showing up. Lauren Graham's showing up. Her character, no, she's not going to change it. Like it kept on being like, oh, nothing's going to change this
Nope.
character.
No,
like nothing's going to.
And it's like the kid shows up and you think maybe that's going to be it, and you keep waiting for the moment that the kid is going to be the one that changes something in him, and he does, but it takes so much longer to happen than you expect.
And it essentially happens off screen.
Kind of, yeah.
Right.
In a lot of ways, it's a weird moment. I want to get to that, but I want to give that its own kind of moment for it because it's sort of that's the big turning point I think in the entirety of the movie. But the cast is, I mean, we've talked about a few of the names, and it's pretty good. Billy Bob Thornton is perfect in this type of role. There's something weirdly charming about him, despite the fact that he is just the sloppiest, drunk, and just terrible person. But he has some sort of an ability to sort of, there's like an underlying charm to it. And his voice, I think, works really well with that. And kind of just, he's very lanky and kind of gaunt. And so it just fits this type of character, which is why, he did the remake of Bad News Bears. It was a couple years later. It was 2005. And he can fit that role really well. So it's like, okay, I get it. And he wasn't the first choice, I guess. There were a few other names bandied about. That Bill Murray, I think, was one at one point. But I think he was kind of the perfect casting in that role. I can't really envision anyone else pulling off exactly what they did, the way that they did this. Like I could see other actors that could play the drunk or the down on their luck, hitting rock bottom type. But there's there's something in the way Billy Bob Thornton looks throughout this whole movie too. Like he's a little sweaty all the time, and like his hair's greasy, and he just looks like he constantly needs a shower. That he just did so well. And
he did.
and, yeah.
It reminds me, I forget what book I read in my sophomore year in high school. I think it was Wuthering Heights. It was, the classic, this is literature, you need to read some of it.
Yeah.
And AM my presentation of it because I sat in front of the class and I said, the thing is, it's well written, I guess, but there's no one here I like. And if they don't want me to like anyone here, they did a good job. And the teacher said that was insightful. And I feel like we got that here. Like, it's clear they didn't want us to like any of these guys. And
Right.
Billy Bob did a great job of being unlikable. I say that it almost one of the challenges I had with his character. This was one point during it, I decided, okay, this is a character study rather than a movie plot. Like we're going to invest ourselves in understanding or just experiencing Willie's character. I realized it was the lack of consequence show. Like no, he never had consequences for anything.
Nothing.
He just throw in after he gets out and he shows up, and there's that gag where he's behind the bar because he said maybe I'll buy a bar, and he is mixing a drink, and it turns out he's stealing the drink.
Yep.
And gets yelled at, and they throw him over the bar, and he walks away.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
No, and no consequence. And we'll save this to the end bit, but even to the very end, zero consequence to any of his behavior.
Yeah, which, you're not, as a person, going to grow from any of that because you're just going to keep doing the same thing. But that bar scene is great because first you have him talking about, I might open a bar. And then you get him behind the bar in the shirt and he's mixing a drink. Mm-hmm. And what's great about it is it's two levels of subversion that come in that scene. The first one is you see him behind the bar, and my immediate response when I see that, and I had forgotten about that. It had been long enough since I'd seen the movie that like that scene, it just didn't make the impression the first time around. And so my thought was like, oh, that's right. No, he was like working at a bar and gets kicked out of it. And then you find out, no, he's not even working at the bar. He's just behind the bar stealing from it. Like fits his character so much more, and it's just hilarious.
And of note, that was the cleanest he looked in the movie.
Yes.
Right? To your point, he actually, on a bar on the beach, he doesn't look sweaty.
Yeah, somehow.
Permanently sweaty and gross in the Santa suit, which he wears constantly.
Yeah, just all the time.
That was when I was thinking about the lack of consequence is the part of it. I was trying to remember, is this like what 2003 was like? Because that was one of the things that happens to me with all older movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right, okay, let's place this in time. We don't have cell phones. People are smoking in bars.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I remember that stuff. And then, okay, this is after 9/11, so there's actually some sort of big security and interdepartment police force stuff going on, but it's probably not part of the story yet because we haven't really accepted that kind of world as a media thing.
Yeah.
But then I was like, let's think of what does professionalism look like in 2003? Would they have let Santa eat at the food court in his Santa uniform, half in his Santa uniform? Like no, like again, that's like all these minor transgressions that he did professionally, interpersonally, vocally with the things he said to people.
Yeah.
It was amazing the lack of consequence. And one of the things I wondered about with his character was how the people that stayed close to him put up with him. Like how did Mr. Merman? I got Thurman the Merman was beautiful name. But how did he was just relentlessly compassionate. But the one that completely threw me off, that felt just so weird and kind of a bizarre fantasy fulfillment for people who like to be bitter and mean, was Lauren Graham's character being like, I've always wanted to screw Santa.
And so
Let's
that's
go in your
enough.
car.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that was
in most movies, that character would be a one-off joke for that
Mhm.
moment. And then you would never see that character again. But they
Right.
keep her around. And the thing with that is, from just a writing standpoint, she's paper thin because we have no background from her at all. Like, the background we get is that she grew up with a Jewish father, so they never celebrated Christmas.
Right.
That's as much as we get. And no reasoning behind like why she sticks around with him, what she sees in him. They never have a conversation really that's of any substance whatsoever. So it's weird in that respect. And yeah, she's kind of a character that throws you off a little bit because she just puts up with him and likes him for reasons.
right.
So,
Right.
you know,
Well, and, it has occurred to me too that if there was going to be a character, like there were so many bits in the movie about him liking large women,
mhm,
and she is like, peak early aughts conventional attractive Hollywood.
right.
Right. She's not Hollywood hot. She's like conventional attractive. She's right. The thing I think of her for is because of Gilmore Girls as the mom, and like that's
Yeah.
where she fits. But she's definitely not thick, and yeah, I think the one of the things that happened in this, they tried to like, pile on crass jokes
Mhm.
that they thought would get people to laugh, and it's funny that he likes to have sex with large women, I guess, which was, in modern like in recent times they would have that, but that would be his, the woman he ended up spending time with, she would also be a large woman. It would fit thematically.
Yeah, instead of being just a joke.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those where, like, I like Lauren Graham, but
Mm-hmm.
I just wish, from a writing standpoint, I wish there had been more character there. But then
Sure.
this movie's already, it's an hour and a half long. It would have been a different movie to have more character from her. It is an odd character.
Yeah.
It might have been a better movie. I'm not, and that's not even saying like I get a kick out of this movie because it's just dumb fun.
Mm-hmm.
I laugh because of the ridiculousness of the jokes, and it feels okay to laugh at these characters because they're just terrible people.
Sure.
So, that's fine. But like Tony Cox as Marcus, he's the other one I think that changes the most throughout the movie. Because at the start of the movie, Marcus he's a thief, obviously, right? He's, they're robbing department stores of all their cash, taking a bunch of merchandise, and they do this every year. And he's not, but he feels like, and he acts as though he kind of cares about Willie enough to be like, dude, you're falling apart, you're terrible, but you're going to be back. Yeah, get yourself together, and we're going to do this again next year. And at first, you kind of get the feel like, all right, it's mostly like we're going to keep working together, but still, you almost expect that at some point he wants to have that heart to heart of like, you need to figure things out because you're gonna end up going down a bad path. And boy, does he have a turn when after Bernie Mac's character of Jin lets them in that he knows their scam. And then we have the scene where Marcus and his wife track down and get Jin and smash him up with the car. I was like, oh, I forgot that went there too. Like I'd forgotten a few things about this movie, and that was another one of them that I remembered nobody being likable, but I completely forgot that like they went straight homicidal in that scene.
Yeah. Like casually homicidal.
Yeah.
Like critiquing. Like if I had had a little more runway, I probably could have just killed him outright. Like she was she was one note of Venom.
Oh. Yeah, she was bad. By the way, that was Lauren Tom who played his wife Lois. You might not recognize her by name, but you have heard her voice before. She plays Amy Wong in Futurama.
Oh, that's spectacular. That is so funny.
And I mean, she is very one note in this. But it's everyone's kind of one note. They're very two-dimensional characters in here. Even the ones like Marcus and Jin, who have the most change from start to finish, are still very two-dimensional. They go from 1 to 2 dimensions basically.
Right.
Marcus just gets darker, and Jin, we find out, he's the head of security, but he's not a good guy. And it's the stealing the iPad from the kid thing where you're like, okay, so this guy's not actually like upstanding at all, because he's just going to take stuff from kids, and then everything else that he does. But up until that scene with the MP3 player, he seemed like he was just kind of gonna be like the foil. He was gonna be the one to stop them.
Right. Well, here's a question, because it occurs to me that he also was a chain smoker, and smoking plays a different role in movies now than it used to, certainly. But he always had these like giant messy ashtrays on the desk and was smoking in this vaguely unappealing way, and I'm wondering if this was in a time frame where there's sexy smoking, there's sophisticated smoking, there's gross smoking, and if that was a hint at character early on in the writing, or if that was just me forgetting that smoking was always, it was always kind of a dirty habit when you're smoking inside.
I mean, I think a little bit of both, right? I think it's because I do think that a lot of movies will use things like that as sort of tipping their hand a little bit and kind of giving you just a little extra view of the character that then later on you can be like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. These were the signposts pointing us in the direction. It's the whole,
that pedicure scene.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, because it's one of those where on first watch I don't necessarily pay attention. I don't pay attention to things like that consciously. I see it, but it's when I have to go back and think about it, or I watch it a second time where I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense now. He's always eating, like the way he's eating oranges all the time, and there's always 3 or 4 oranges on his desk, and he's putting like,
and he slurps them.
Yeah,
oh, I had forgotten about that, but yeah, I had like this physical reaction.
Yeah,
to those
I did
moments.
too. I did too. Ooh.
That reminds me, I don't know if we want to transition to this now, but put a pin in sort of sound and music. I was really intrigued by in this movie.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to get back to that too, because I'm with you. I did want to mention, so John Ritter, this was his last live action film. He did a couple.
Wow, okay.
There was a couple of animated things that I think he had done voice work for that came out after this, but this was his last film. It's dedicated in his memory. He had died shortly after filming this. He's not in the movie very much, and he's sort of forgotten by the end. Like, he just stops being in scenes, and he's mentioned by name one other time. But he's so funny when he's on screen. He's so good for those few moments that he's there. Like, the scene in his office with Marcus and Willie, when he's trying to chastise them, and Willie flips it around on him and starts talking about the picketing and bringing all the little people into it and all that kind of stuff, and just watching him like very quickly crumble, trying to catch up and figure out what's going on. It was such a well written and performed scene between these 3 very good comedic actors.
Right, and that's when I think of John Ritter, that's his wheelhouse for comedy, is the captured and trying to squirm his way out. And certainly my perspective is influenced by Three's Company.
Oh, yeah.
And in my childhood. I want to call out, talking about scenes he was in, the one with him and Bernie Mac, when he was talking about, he's immaculate. Willie's immaculate. There's nothing about him. He just likes, he's a sexual being, and it's just like nothing wrong except sex. And it was like, man's a sexual being, and I wouldn't want to take it away from them. And like that back and forth between Bernie Mac and John Ritter, that was one of my few like laugh out loud moments watching this. That was really funny, and Prices were like, yeah, no, sex is a reasonable thing. We can't can't deny that. It's a basic human need. Although part of my brain was like, yes, and doing it in the changing room of the place you work's probably something you can actually call someone out for.
Yeah,
You don't need you don't.
there are lines that you don't want to cross, and that might be one of them. Yeah, because I had notes like John Ritter is a damn treasure, and he just makes this movie. What was the other one? The scene in the office, the "you people" moment was great because that's always, when done right, that's the type of joke that just it always seems to make me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And then just everything with Ritter was another note I had. Like, just everything with him. Like his face, his facial expressions, and it's like the squirmy face that he would make when somebody would say something, because like him as a character didn't want to swear, so he like having him spelling things out, that cracked me up.
Right, I forgot about that.
It's just and you know it's a shame that we lost him so young, because he's kind of an underappreciated comedic talent. Like people that remember Three's Company and watch Three's Company, and I certainly watched a lot of reruns of it growing up. But unfortunately, that's mostly what people know him for, and he doesn't get enough credit, I think, as being as funny as he could be, from people that are a little bit like younger than me. Like there's not, because he just didn't do enough things. He was in the middle of doing kind of a sitcom revival with was it 8 Simple Rules? I think it was called.
Okay.
It was like, I think it was 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. And it was, he was hilarious in that. It was him and Katie Seagal, I think, was in that. Kaylee Cuoco, it was one of her early works, pre-Big Bang Theory. And sadly, he passed away while making that. So they had to write him out of it. But I just feel like he needs more credit for how good he was, because he was hilarious. And every scene he was in, he stole in this. Like from the very beginning, when you first meet him and he's trying to talk to the other Santa who's leaving.
Right.
Which, again, there's one of those things in the movie where they give you no explanation why they're switching Santas. And he even says it's not about the money, but like, what was it then? You know, how did Marcus convince him to basically fire the Santa they've had for years, the one that sings Burl Ives songs and does all this stuff, to bring in Willie?
Right. Well, and honestly, I mean, when John Ritter's character said it's not about the money, I didn't believe him for a second. I was like, obviously, like I'm right there. This was another one of those things for me with like there's a certain bit of fantasy fulfillment for people who like to be miserable in this movie, where like the guy that's really good at his job and is excellent and loyal, and they will just throw him away, and I can just come in and be crass and like I can't remember if that was the conversation where John Ritter and Willie had the back and forth about performance.
Yes.
You know, what do you mean? Like sexual performance? No, I'm fine. My dog's great. Yeah, no, like right into that conversation.
Yep.
And he could be miserable and still, you know, again, walk through with no consequences.
Yep. Yeah.
It was very
by the way, this cast has 2 Oscar winners in it. Can you name them? Off the top of your head.
I can name one. Let's see. One of them, because I was looking along the lines, thinking about the point of big girls. So Octavia Spencer.
Yep.
Right.
Yes, Octavia.
Like,
and
who has like the.
Again, completely forgot she was in this, and she's in for one scene for a throwaway gag or a throwaway moment.
There's a lot of great. There are a lot of great actors just sparkled in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who would be the other.
You'll
Did
kick
Billy Bob
yourself.
Thornton win an Oscar?
He did. Yes.
Okay.
He won for Sling Blade.
Was it for Sling Blade?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which, incidentally, when I was looking around, John Ritter was in Sling Blade too. Apparently,
he was. Yeah. I have not seen that movie. I think I've seen it once, and I honestly remember nothing of it. So,
I remember. I just remember the like, just like the sling blade.
Yep.
That's all I remember from it. I had friends that would throw around quotes from it ages ago.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, Octavia Spencer just kind of popping up out of nowhere, playing Opal. And
Right.
when she gets up to walk and she's like grabbing her hip and stuff, it was just. And apparently, now there's a
that was
sequel
actually
to this.
another
By
one.
the way,
That was actually another one of my laugh out loud moments because they had something that paid off.
yes.
Right.
Yep.
And that's for me my favorite bits in comedy. Soundly Shaped by Monty Python. It was like, hey, we mentioned something in the first 3 minutes, and then 45 minutes later, it comes back in this funny way. And that was the like I couldn't walk straight for a week. Like that was a payoff, a
Yes.
line earlier. And then there were other things that just like there's a AJ Naidu. So the guy I recognized him from Office Space.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right? And he was there, and he got angry, and then like ran up, and I guess his purpose in there was to give the kid a reason to show up again.
Yeah.
Starts beating on Billy Bob Thornton and saying, "I'm not gay," and that's the entirety of his existence in the movie.
Right.
It's like what's the? I don't understand if that was that supposed to be funny? Was that like a character development? Is there going to be a funny payoff later? Like I'm lost.
Yeah, that was one of the jokes. That was one of the moments that felt like it was thought up with no real payoff to it, and they just went with it anyway.
Yeah.
And then maybe later on just decided to like cut out anything else that could have referenced. It was odd because it did feel weirdly out of place. Like having just the moment in the bar where he's staring at him angrily across the bar would have been plenty. You could have just left it at that, and it would have been a silly moment. But like, who hasn't had a weird time where they've locked eyes with just the wrong person at the wrong time, and then you move on from it. Yeah, but I definitely, as soon as I see him, I'm like, oh, that's right, he was in Office Space. That's the only other thing I can think of him from. But he was definitely.
I will admit that my second thought is, okay, what's he going to do funny here?
Yeah.
So you started to mention there's a sequel, and I didn't realize that until right before we started recording tonight.
Yeah, and the sequel didn't come out till 2016. I have not seen it, but it apparently has Willie and Marcus is back, and the kid, and Kathy Bates plays Willie's mother. For some,
okay,
and I have no idea. It didn't review nearly as well as this one. You know, this kind of sits at sort of the most reviews and kind of ratings I see for it are in that kind of 6.5 to low 7s sort of range, which makes sense for this movie. This is not a kind of a universal appeal film at all.
Right.
Whereas Bad Santa 2 seems to sit kind of in the mid to low 5s on a lot of places that I see, where it was. I don't know if it was just retreading too much of the same thing or what. I'm really not sure. But yeah, I've never had the desire to really see it. So, but
yeah. Well, and I wonder too how much of it, if it was repeating a lot of the same comedy,
that's what I wonder.
Didn't hold up 15 years later or a dozen years later.
Yeah,
that's one of the things. Even we've been in our house. Our son's 15, going to be 16 in January. We've started indoctrinating him in the Will Ferrell canon. And Anchorman, he just had no interest in it. It did not stand up as far as the Anchorman for me. I would have thought it'd been perfect for a 15-year-old.
Right.
But a lot of the jokes there are pretty crass and some, vaguely sexist, vaguely racist, in ways that felt cute and funny in the early aughts.
Right.
That those rough edges have been polished off, and you either need to, I think now, be a lot smoother and sort of precise, or be even more jagged and crazy.
Yeah.
I think about some of the Like one of the types of movies that I really love are the sort of high school romp,
Mm-hmm.
the sort of
Yeah, like American Pie.
American Pie, Can't Hardly Wait, even and also like Generation Before with 16 Candles and those.
Yep.
And recently those have been, what was the Booksmart, I think was one.
Booksmart, yeah.
And they seem a little bit harder to land, but also actually I think about it, like Eurotrip, which is somewhere on the tail end of the American Pie one. You know,
yeah, because that would have been after Road Trip, I think, and it's it's weird,
they
right?
Get crass,
because
but they're absurd. So I think I think that's one of the things I realized for my taste watching this. Bad Santa's crass and trying to be sort of gritty and realistic and crass, and those other movies where I'm like, I don't mind crass jokes. Why do I not like these? Only because they're absurd and trying to be ridiculous. It's like Batman 68 versus The Dark Knight, right? Like
kind
they're
of
going,
yeah.
Same thing, but they're going for very different directions.
Well, and it's interesting because apparently Todd Phillips came in to direct a few scenes that were in this movie. I don't know if they were reshoots or what. And he would go on to do things like he was involved in the Hangover and things like that. Okay. So I feel as though the Hangover is an example of a lot of crass humor, but it's so over the top and absurd that it fits that, right? It's that Monty Python type thing where Monty Python can do something that can be crass, can be weird, but it's so weird. It's so out there. It's so like the violence in Monty Python is so silly because somebody gets tapped by a sword and their entire arm falls off, and it's just like a cartoonish little spray of blood coming out of there that you can't help but laugh at it. It's the ridiculous nature of it. Whereas you're right, this is feeling like it wants to be a black comedy, but not quite stray too far into the absurdity of the comedy, and that makes it a little tougher to land some of the jokes. Like there's still plenty of moments in this that I laugh at. The scene where they're boxing, where they're teaching the kid to box.
Oh yeah,
it's so dumb. It's absolutely dumb. Just guys getting hit in the balls, but it's so silly at the same time. Like watching Tony Cox fall over the way that he does, or just his reaction when Thurman kicks him, and he just looks at Willie and then punches the kid right in the groin. Like it's so ridiculous, but I can't help but laugh at it. I think part of that too is that I had a friend of mine that when this movie came out, we watched it, and that scene broke him. He laughed so hard, he started to hyperventilate, and we had to stop the movie. He couldn't handle that scene. So there's some of that. It triggers that memory in me too when I watch it.
And the great thing about that to me, that was funny. That was like literally classic slapstick. Right? And there was a further payoff, right? That was it reminds me of the fact that, Thurman Merman has one of the strongest character arcs in the thing with the big bully. When the bully showed up at the tail end, I was like, I know what's going to happen. It's going to be awesome. I'm so excited for this. Like I got myself all excited and ready to laugh at watching Mr. Bully. And Mr. Bully might as well have worn a Cobra Kai vest. Like he was like so much of a 80s bad guy archetype. But watching him, I was like, he's going to get kicked in the nuts, and it's going to make me laugh.
Yep. He was straight out of the Stephen King Bible for writing a bully. Was that kid and that whole group of skater kids. So Thurman, who's credited as the kid in the movie, but we learn his name is Thurman Merman, was played by Brett Kelly. And Brett Kelly did say in some interviews that like Billy Bob Thornton and Terry Zwigoff, the director, really tried to protect him and just sort of really treat him really well and sort of not let him get overexposed to too much crap, because they thought that the kid was just he was a nice kid. He's only 10 years old when he made this.
Holy cow.
And he does come back in the sequel. He said that in one interview that he will let his hair grow out sometimes around Christmas time, and people will recognize him because of the curly blonde hair.
Okay,
even
that's
now.
hysterical.
The thing with him that's really strange is the way the character is written throughout most of the movie. He is just very much like present, but not accounted for. Like he's there, but not really there. But then he has that moment where he says, I know you're not Santa Claus. I just thought you'd want to give me a gift because we're friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, oh, that's heartbreaking. Like this kid, he's got the self-awareness. We're led to think he doesn't, but you realize he has the self-awareness. And was that before? That was before he gave him the present.
Yes. So two things about that. Like to agree with you aggressively on Thurman Merman. I think I described him as sort of aggressively compassionate. Like he was so kind in this way that felt like they were kind of mocking him in the writing because he was so kind. So clearly he was an idiot. But then that moment was a real snap. And that was before he gave the gift. Yes. The gift, which do you know why a wooden pickle would be a good gift for Willie?
I have no clue why, other than that's just what the kid wanted to give him, but it was him making it. And I think that's right. And there's a callback too, because we saw the scene earlier where he cut himself, and then I don't know how you felt when you were watching it the first time, but it's like they show him wash the wound out, or try to, and then that's it, and it's not mentioned again. And
I will admit, they had broken me as far as expecting anything to relate to something in the past or future. Like I was like, oh, that just happened.
So then to bring it back later, where it's like, I didn't paint it brown, that's blood from when I cut myself making it for you. And it's like, oh, geez. So aggressive compassion, I think, is the right way to describe this kid.
And that bit right there, it's making me think it's probably not the last third. It's probably like the last fifth of the movie is really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's that bit, and then that gets called back at the very end as well.
Yeah.
With the sorry about my present, probably had some blood on it, but I guess that makes us even.
Yeah.
And so that was pulled through nicely, and another, like, rolling into the end, the letter, which also, hey, I need you to hand this letter off. Like that was another thing that I did not expect to pay off. Like they had trained me to that point that there are no payoffs, and then there was payoff after payoff after payoff in that last 20% of the movie, which actually makes me think going into the end, I was like, like there's just not liking this. But then getting the end, there were these payoffs and things pulled through.
Yeah.
That didn't turn me to being enthusiastic about the movie. But I'm like, oh no, that was great. The things paid off. There was plot and character that evolved.
Yeah, and I think that's why I kind of can agree with like the mid 6 to 7 if you're going to rate it on a scale of 10. Because there's definitely some funny moments. There's definitely some things that can work, and there's a kind of a seed of a really cool idea of a redemption type story. But there's so much of the movie, the first hour of the hour and 40-minute movie, that doesn't move any story along and really just spends an hour beating us down that these are terrible people that we shouldn't like.
Oh yeah, I actually wrote down, where is it? I think it was like the first 10 minutes were that heist. I think it might have been less than that. But it seemed like forever.
Yeah.
Like it was interminable. And yeah, it was I guess 28 minutes was in the bar when he had right after he had sex. And like, yeah, everything up to that point had been basically, hey, these are bad people. This is just, Santa's bad. It's in the title. We want to make sure you get that.
Yeah, we're going to hammer that point home. And I think that last 20 minutes trying to then create sort of, he has the epiphany moment, and he's going to get the kid. They have the little montage where he and Sue is her name, Lauren Graham's character, although she's never mentioned. They never say her name in the movie. That's just her credit.
I mean, why would they?
Sure. I mean, who has a name? But it's like that Willie and Thurman and Sue having, making popcorn and doing all that stuff.
Right.
It's like, okay, but this is a little too late. Like, I'm not, it's hard to buy that. So take that and spread that out. Make the movie more about that, give us the turn of Marcus earlier, and you can keep kind of the same story beats, just pick up the pacing a little bit and move that along so that we have more time with Willie maybe having a bit of that epiphany, maybe have his rock bottom moment, which for those of you who haven't seen the movie, there is a moment where Willie hits rock bottom and sits in a garage with a hose going from the exhaust pipe of the car into the car. Like, he's had enough, and the kid comes in and wakes him up, and ends up, that's where Willie has his kind of turning moment, because the kid's got a black eye, and then we just cut to him beating the crap out of the kids that bullied him. Have that happen earlier in the movie so that by the end of the movie we actually care about Willie, and we maybe start to, I think, like him is too much, but not actively despise him would I think make for a better movie. And that's not to say this is bad, but it could have been better.
Well, you said something in there that occurred to me as well, which you said, like, have the beats hit a little sooner, have it move a little faster. I've heard people describe sort of action movies going hard and fast now. Like, you can't slowly get into a movie, and I've noticed that looking at older movies and trying to get my kids to watch older movies where it's an adventure or an action movie and it takes too long to get into what's going on.
Yeah.
And what I realize is the similar thing is true with character development. Like, I don't want to steep and stew in who this person is for 45 minutes before we see some sort of movement. You can, and maybe I think it has a lot to do with how movies are made now, or actually probably even more accurately how, TV streaming series are made now, because those are the ones where we get the most character development and beats.
Yeah.
That I've gotten accustomed to a faster rhythm of introduction and development than this movie does.
I think so. For me, the part, like, I don't mind a slow burn. I don't mind building up to things, but if you're going to spend an hour of your runtime pointing out how terrible Willie is, how bad of a person Marcus is, and his wife and Jin and all these characters, you can't then say, all right, well, we're going to wrap it all up in half an hour. It's got to then be a 2-hour movie, because we need enough time. If you're going to spend that much time beating us down, we need enough time to recover from that and come back around. So it's easier to have, if you're going to keep your movie at an hour 30, hour 40, to just pace that better so that we have enough time to believe in this redemption instead of being like, well, that guy didn't earn anything. Because it comes back to your no consequences. There's no consequences for anything Willie does. It doesn't matter if it's him drinking in the parking lot in his Santa costume and then breaking the windshield of a random car with the bottle and setting off the alarm. No one does anything about that. No one does anything about him grabbing all the keys from the valet station and just, which that one cracked me up, where he just grabs a handful of keys and starts walking through the lot trying to find the car that he wants to steal. But like no consequences for that. Yeah.
In the fantasy.
Yep, exactly. None. So there's
that was a kind of a funny twist there. That was a twist on expectations, because it was like, oh no, the kid peed on Santa. Oh no. Santa peed on himself.
Yeah.
But I think they played that joke like 3 times, or at least it feels like they went back to that well.
I know they did at least one other time. When he has his complete meltdown, when he shows up with the broken wine bottle coming up the escalator, and then he falls over top of everything. And that, again, that's him hitting his bottom, right? That's him just like...
Sure.
And that happens so late in the movie that, once again, it doesn't feel like he had enough time to recover from that. Like, that should have either been the last thing that happened to him, or it should have happened earlier and give us time to recover from it and move forward in our plot points, in our story beats. Again, this is just one guy's opinion, talking on the internet, but that's what I would have liked to have seen out of it. Having said that, I still do enjoy the movie, and there's some good craft going on here, because you mentioned audio and music earlier.
Can I ask one before we move to audio and music and we
Absolutely.
talk about the wrap up? There are two things about that. One, like what solidified the parade of lack of consequences. He actually gets shot like 5 times in the back by the police at the end there, crawling to the house. I was like, oh, wow, that is a bold choice. Like, Bad Santa's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, no, he's not. Like, again, he just got multiple wounds from the police, still no consequence. Except there was a little bit of blood on the elephant.
Yeah.
And this is something that I was trying to remember I was kind of obsessed with during the moment and laughing. So he, Thurman the Merman, says, you know how I said I want a pink elephant? Well, I don't want a pink elephant. I want a purple elephant.
Yep.
And then he says, you know what? I don't want a pink elephant or a purple elephant. I want an ape that can beat up the bullies.
Yeah.
And that was part of that rock bottom. Willie goes and sees the elephants as he's running away from the police, and there's pink ones and the purple ones, and he can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure he grabbed the wrong one.
Oh, yeah, he definitely went with the pink one.
He grabbed the wrong color, and that's all I could think about. I'm like, you're like, oh my word, you're trying to be so sweet and compassionate, and
almost there.
Still can't quite get it.
Nope.
Still can't quite get there. But that was something that I got caught up with in that last moment. I was like, oh, that's so funny that he just still couldn't make it. But you were going to transition to the sound and music.
Yeah, and the sound design in this it's not the best I've ever heard, but there are moments where they do stuff like Bernie Mac's character when he's eating oranges, or when he's whatever he's doing, they seem to amp that sound up and give you that visceral reaction of just kind of. They do that with Willie when he's eating in the food court. He's eating his salad, which just that really grosses me out when people eat like that, where it's just you're just chewing, you just stuff too much food in your mouth, and then you're just chewing with your mouth open and letting stuff fall out of it. But there's like the sounds of him eating and all of that. It just hammered home, made you uncomfortable the whole time. So
yeah, it was again another layer into sort of that sweaty, unkept, dirtiness of the world they were creating, which for me was an interesting counterpoint to. They used the Christmas music really well.
Yeah,
the Christmas music was not just here's some Christmas music in the background. The songs really hit the beats of the show that were happening at the time.
Yes, they did,
and that was a really neat thing for me doing that. Until I actually there was one time where they put something from the Nutcracker in, and I misheard it as Sleeping Beauty, which was wrong, and that was right. Like I think that was right around the time when he right near his rock bottom, like the advent calendar thing, where he ate all the candy out of it, which was right before he really got to his worst spot.
Yeah, and there again, by the way, that was a scene where when it happens in the moment, you're like, oh, okay, this guy's just terrible. He's ripping open the kid's advent calendar. But then the next morning when he saw it and he saw the aftermath of it, there's that, he has a moment of self-realization of like, oh, what have I done? But again, it's like, that's it, and then we forget about it for another 20 minutes. And that's where I want stuff like that to actually carry over. Because they paid off some jokes, but they didn't pay off that growth the way that I would have wanted.
Well, and they, I mean, they ended up paying that off at the one point where, I mean, partially again, like the wrong elephant, where he did patch up like kids like, anyone see my calendar?
Yeah.
And he patched it up and he stuck a candy corn in there because that was
Or what was the other one? An aspirin. There's like a NyQuil
right. And
or an Advil liquid gel.
trying to find the time frame on that reminded me of another point. Probably the biggest laugh I had during the whole movie, which was, if you remember, when he went into the house, went into the Merman house, it's like, Santa needs to hang out for a while. It's like, don't you stay in the North Pole? Yeah, no, Mrs. North Pole, Mrs. Santa kicked me out. Why?
Yeah.
Well, I was sleeping with Mrs. Santa's sister.
Yes.
And then at some point, again, in that final 20%, Thurman
I know what you're going
goes
to
to
say.
Sue and goes, hey, Mrs. Santa's sister, how are you doing? Or something. like
It was,
again, the kid's not an idiot. He's like, I
No.
know you're having sex with Santa, and he told me who he's having sex with, so obviously
that's who
you are Mrs.
Yeah.
Santa's sister.
That was a well done, and again, that's where there's some really, really good comedic writing in here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those moments. Also, by the way, did you recognize Grandma? I forgot to mention this earlier.
It's funny. I recognize her vaguely, but I don't know what I know her from.
That is an uncredited Cloris Leachman playing Grandma.
Oh, crap. Okay.
And that was one I completely forgotten she was in this. And she has almost no lines. Basically, she just says a few times, I'll make you some sandwiches.
Yep.
And that's it. But yeah, that was Cloris Leachman. She's been in a ton of stuff.
I did recognize Alex Borstein.
Yes.
For some, she's very unique though. It was pretty. She stands out. But that was funny. That was part of what made me think, oh, look at this interesting cast. Like, that's a cameo, clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I forgot that she was like, I forgot all these cameos. Her, Billy Gardell, the other mall Santa or department store Santa was Tom McGowan, and even the sheriff at the end when the police show up, that was John Bonnell, and he is an actual police sheriff and used to do a bunch of those highway patrol, high speed chase, like TV series where he would be the one introducing them. You'd see him on like the old court TV and stuff like that. That was that guy.
Oh, that's funny.
So I just thought that was hilarious. And Matt Walsh also is Herb, the neighbor that comes over that tells him about putting out the lights.
Oh, right, yeah. Which
I
again,
was like, oh,
paid
geez,
off
he's
in the
young.
last 20%.
It did.
Right? That was another, like, oh, look, payoff.
Yeah, it's weird because it is a movie that has its funny moments, and it's got good use of music. And I think that now Terry Zwigoff, who directed this, his previous movie to this was Ghost World, which is a very different but also very interesting movie. But that was kind of that. He did Ghost World. He did this movie. He did Art School Confidential. But that was kind of it for him in terms of like film. He did a TV movie from a couple of years ago called Budding Prospects. But he wasn't. He was more into kind of the underground comic scene. He did some stuff with like. He did a movie called Crumb in 1994 about what's his name? Robert Crumb, the cartoonist. And
Isn't Ghost World based on a comic as well?
Ghost World was based on a comic, yes. And that was kind of it. Like he just kind of got out of directing films. So it's weird to think he did Ghost World, he did Bad Santa, and that was kind of like Art School Confidential. So that was 2001 to 2006, and he was like, oh, I'm done. I'm just going to move on.
Yeah.
But, which is weird because I think he has a decent eye for stuff. I think that the direction of the movies are, this movie is pretty good. My main complaints with it are script-based more than anything. Like, I feel like they could have punched this script up and just tightened it up and made it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Having said that, there are some moments that just make you laugh. It's very, very crass, and it is not a movie for everyone. I can 100% see where people wouldn't like this just because of the crude humor in it, and
Right.
the fact that it's centered around Christmas. Because this had me thinking about kind of alternative Christmas movies, sort of the anti-Christmas movie where it's set around Christmas. It's got the themes, but it's not your Miracle on 34th Street. It's not a Christmas story. It's things like this, or one that I watched a couple years ago, Fat Man, with Mel Gibson, where he's playing Santa Claus.
Okay.
But he's not your traditional Santa Claus. He's like kind of a grumpy, old, angry Santa, and he wants to retire. And the plot of the movie revolves around a rich kid doesn't get the toy that he wants, so he puts a hit out on Santa.
Oh my word. Okay.
There's those kinds of movies where it's like it's clearly a Christmas-based movie, but it's not your traditional Christmas movie. Not even in a Die Hard sense. We're like having the debate of is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not. It's more of no. Bad Santa is meant to be a Christmas season type of movie, but the antithesis of that.
Right. But it's still, so it makes me think of, I guess we had talked for a second about using the ref, which I've seen bits and pieces of.
Yep.
I think it's one of the movies I've seen but don't recall really well. But again, that one, it's bad stuff around Christmas, but also there feels like more of a redemption arc there. And even with this, like being an anti-Christmas movie, they couldn't manage to not have the redemption in the end. Like if they had, instead of gone completely over the deep end, I probably would have had a similar perspective on it, which is the first 4/5 could have been a lot faster and tighter, and that last bit was amazing, or at least intriguing.
Yeah.
But they did. One of the critiques I read after I watched it was that it didn't fulfill its promise of being fully the anti-holiday movie.
Yeah. Which, it's interesting to say, like, I wonder if, in your opinion, if they hadn't had that coda where he sends the kid the letter, and instead we get something along the lines of like, Willie was shot and killed and he dies at the end of this. How does how does that change the movie for you when you're watching it? Because I feel like that's more of the logical conclusion of what would have happened and kind of more fitting with the first hour of the movie that we saw.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it, I probably would have gone like, holy crap, consequence. Like the consequence finally happened. But I think it would have felt a little bit out of place because so much of the movie up to that point had lacked any consequence. And so you go from, it would have been like 0 to 100 as far as consequences go.
But
you got no consequences, and then you're dead.
Yeah, but I do wonder if you have no consequences, he starts to come around. He's starting to feel some empathy for another person, right? Because he didn't even really feel any empathy towards Sue.
Right.
For him, that was just a sexual thing, and that was basically it. And then for him to start to feel this empathy for Thurman to the point where, he tries to teach him how to stick up for himself. And, like, he'll say these horrible things to Thurman, but the second Thurman says it about himself, he's like, you got to stop doing that. You can't do that.
Right.
To then have the consequences hit, I almost feel like that's more earned, and like that's a braver choice in the writing than going the route that they did. I don't know. It's hard to say, like, because there is a little kind of both. I think that having it end the way that it did works. It makes sense. It does lead to a couple of funny lines right at the end there. The whole thing of like, I sent her some money. Maybe if you treat her nice, she'll buy you something.
Right.
I get to work with sensitivity training with the police because the whole, shooting an unarmed Santa Claus was more embarrassing for them than Rodney King. Like that kind of stuff. Those are funny jokes. It's weird. I think if it's not a Hollywood movie, I think an independent movie, they might go that route.
Sure.
Like it almost feels as though if you took the humor out of it, like I don't even want to say Darren Aronofsky, but like that kind of thing where, you know, these movies that have these kind of downer endings, like it feels like it could have been that if it was more trying to appeal to the art house crowd with that black comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about and just sort of play out in your head of like, oh, I wonder how that would feel. I wonder how different that would have been having that be the payoff in the end of the movie, because it is the ultimate consequence for everything. It's like he instead of getting consequences along the way, it just all built up and then all came due at the same time, with him trying to crawl to the kid's house with the pink elephant. So, you know, it's an interesting movie. You have to, I feel like this is a movie that you have to know somebody well to recommend to them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because there are crass comedies, and then there's this, which is like American Pie, for instance. A lot of crass humor in that, but most of it is more lighthearted. This feels actively mean in a lot of parts, and so that's
American
really
American Pie is crass with a heart of gold.
yes,
and this is even when it's uplifting, the heart is made of blood-stained pickle wood, right?
yes, exactly, exactly that. However, saying that, I did capture a couple clips of audio. Not a lot, because there's not a lot that's really playable from the movie.
I was going to ask you beforehand what's the vocabulary rating for the show, because hot damn.
Well, I've got 3 that I can play. And the first one was it's the way he delivers his lines when he's driving the kid home for the first time. And of course, you got the kid just asking him question after question, but it's Billy Bob. It's Willie saying this to him.
The right height, you're right there to grab his balls.
Like talking about, thanks for helping me because you're the right height, you're right there. And the kid just sails right over his head. He has no idea. This clip it's just the way he delivers this when he comes home from the strip club. So he's at the strip club after stealing all the money, and he's doing the scratchers right there in it and all that, and he goes home with the dancer. And as soon as they walk into his place, and he's like, all right, I need to listen to my messages and you need to go take a shower. And she says, what? I'm a dancer. And then he says this.
You know, well, you smell like a bum's nutsack.
And I'm like, oof, that's rough, but I can't also help but chuckle because it's so ridiculous, such a ridiculous thing to say. It's horrible.
It is.
But
it is. And I was like, wait a minute, you probably paid her $20 to rub up against your nutsack earlier in the night.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you the bum? Are you the bum whose nutsack she smells like?
Yes, that is exactly it. And then if I didn't capture at least one John Ritter moment, I wouldn't feel right about myself. And so there was this one.
And I heard his voice saying, "That's right. You ain't going to SHIT right for a month."
And it's when you're watching it too, he's about to say it and then he stops himself and then he has to quickly spell it out. And it's just his delivery of it is so perfect because it's painful for him to even say these things. And you can hear it in his voice where he gets just a little bit quieter when he's saying it. And then he has to kind of finish up. And it's just, if nothing else, search YouTube for just John Ritter moments from this movie, and it's worth it. They're so good. They're really so good. Even the one where Bernie Mac says something, and it just cuts to Ritter, and he's just giving that like lemon, like pained face of like, oh, I don't even want to think about that. It just cracks me up. So, I mean, Bad Santa is not your typical Christmas movie. But for certain people out there, I think it's kind of a Christmas tradition, almost. It is one of, when I think of the anti-Christmas movies, this is one that comes up.
Sure.
There's because I wouldn't even put like the Christmas horror movies in that kind of a boat necessarily. Those are a different beast altogether.
Yeah.
This is like, oh well, you want your uplifting, wholesome Hallmark family Christmas. Well, this is the opposite of that. This is everything different about that. It's kind of punk rock Christmas in that way, right? Which is ironic that the bullies in it are punk rock looking skater kids that get beat up by Santa Claus. Which there again was a moment in the movie, a line that he says when he's sitting in the locker room with Marcus after that scene, where you kind of like the absurdity of it makes you laugh, but it's also like, oh man, when he says, yeah, I beat up some kids today. It made me feel good about myself. Like I was doing something constructive for the first time. And there again, this is before Marcus has his turn where we find out that he'll like literally kill people. And it's Marcus looking at him like, you need years of therapy. So you're led to believe like maybe Marcus isn't the worst person. He just is a thief. Like you can be a thief and not be what Marcus and his wife turn out to be, which is killers. So,
yeah.
but that moment, like, because the way that's shot and it's Willie literally saying these words and feeling good about himself. Like I beat up some kids today and it made me feel good. And you just see Marcus in the background look at him. And even when it's out of focus, you can see the look on his face of like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, that was a moment where I laughed and also felt bad about myself at the same time.
Yes. That's where you laugh uncomfortably.
It was uncomfortably funny.
Like, I'm laughing at this. I shouldn't be laughing at it. I'm definitely putting myself in a position to go to hell over laughing about this, but damn it, that's funny. I need you to stop, but it's really funny. So that's Bad Santa. Like I say, it's fine. It's good. I wouldn't run out and tell people, oh, it's the best like Christmas comedy or even dark Christmas comedy, but it's, if you are one that can deal with the crudeness of the humor, I think it's worth watching at least once, if for nothing else than to say that you saw it. But it's not. I am not a like, oh, you got to watch Bad Santa, it's the funniest movie ever type person myself.
Right. Yeah. So. No, I don't think there's anyone that I would say I would certainly not going to make my child watch this.
No.
And. I'm gonna make him watch American Pie at some point in time. Although, or trying to think of what movie. What's the worst movie I'm gonna make my son watch someday? Something about Mary, probably.
Yeah, kind of any Zucker brothers, really. Something about Mary, Kingpin. There's a few choices there.
Manos Hand of Fate. I don't. Not sure that I'm ready for that movie.
No, no one is. No one is.
But yeah, no, it's definitely worthwhile. And I think there are certain people I could find myself. Like there's some people where you legitimately think, yeah, you should try a shot of Malort. And like I think there's some people who are legitimate. You're like, yeah, Bad Santa would be a movie that would be good for you to experience.
Oh, absolutely. There are definitely, I know people. I do know people that I would say, go watch Bad Santa. You'll like it,
right.
For sure. But and the general population, I would be like, I have to know the person. I wouldn't recommend this to somebody without knowing them well enough to know that they. So a lot of movies I can be like, yeah, watch that. Yes, it's got universal appeal. This does not have universal appeal, really at all. So, but that's fine. Not every movie has to be good or be enjoyable, and I'm fine with that. That's what I love about movies. That's why I like talking about them. And it feels as though you're kind of on the same page as me. Like there were moments you liked, but it wasn't. It's not something you're going to put in your regular holiday rotation.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go into the holiday rotation. Although I will admit, I'm now intrigued to watch the sequel. Like I might take some time and watch Bad Santa 2 just to see how it changes or stays the same compared to this, and if it somehow improves or just keeps the same pace.
I'm with you a little bit on that because I want to know, like, well, why is he back to his boozing ways if he had
Right.
any growth at the end of this movie, especially whatever it is, 12, 13 years later. So, maybe there's a little bit of that to it too. But hey, I'm glad that you got to watch it and we can check it off your list.
you.
Now you can say you've seen Bad Santa.
Indeed, I can.
But thank you so much for being here this week. This is fun. I love having you on. You're always welcome. So it was great when I was looking through and a while back, and I'm like, I got to get a hold of Joe again. It's been long enough now that we need to get him back on here. So that's really fun. Go ahead.
I missed the week before Cage-a-Palooza this year. I was gonna say I was doing that for a couple of years in a row, but I wasn't able to get there this time. But this is nice. Christmas time is, like I said, we love Christmas in our house, and so watching new Christmas stuff. And actually, that's a point we're making this year is watching more Christmas stuff. And there's a bunch of different Christmas stuff that's just coming out this year, which is fun. But also going back and checking out some of the old stuff, either that we haven't seen or that we haven't watched in years. So this was a great opportunity to check something out.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad that we got to do that, and thank you for being on. Have you got anything you're working on that you want to let people know about?
Absolutely, yeah. I am just about to wrap up a 12-episode season of my show, which is called Mandatory Cocktail Hour. I've been given feedback that is disappointingly not about drinking. It's actually the name is a riff on the sort of mandatory social event that people have at conferences and conventions. My background, I have a doctorate in adult learning and specialize in how people learn informally and socially.
Mm-hmm.
And so my show is about our networks and how we learn and grow together. And I just finished recording the last episode in a series about collaboration. I talked to some really amazing people. One of the co-founders of Freestyle Love Supreme. He's actually a Tony Award winner, which was kind of exciting.
Oh, nice.
I talked to some comic book writers and artists out in Hollywood, including what name is all of a sudden blanking? Jason Inman and Ashley Victoria Robinson, who are friends of the Tadpool, and some really interesting stories. If you're intrigued about how people learn and how people collaborate, it'd be a really good show to listen to. And moving forward, I'm going to get back into some of my more standard shows with talking to people about how their connections have helped them develop, which hopefully helps people understand how you can grow in your career and your learning through the people around you.
Very cool. Excellent. And Mandatory Cocktail Hour.
Yes, indeed.
I love it. That's a great name, too. Even if it doesn't have to do with drinking, I think that's a great name. Because while I don't have a ton of experience with those, I know of those. The mandatory, we're having this thing, you've got to be there. Oh, all right, fine.
Yeah. I was Mandatory Fun Time is a Weird Al song, so I couldn't call it that, but it's the same energy.
Yes, nice, excellent, very, very, very cool. Mandatory Cocktail Hour, definitely check that out. Now, this show that you're listening to here, Wait You Haven't Seen, I do record live Sunday nights at twitch.tv/TV's Travis. If you want to check it out while it's happening live, you can do that. There are video on demand after the fact, or you can check out the video of it on YouTube. Goes up a day or two later. That's YouTube. It's at TV's Travis on YouTube, and you'll find him there. The show as a podcast comes out on Wednesdays, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can go to tvstravis.com and search and get the ways to support the show as well as subscribe to the show right there if you don't find it easily on your podcasting platform of choice. But it is available on Apple, Google, Spotify, all of those. The show has a Patreon. It's patreon.com/WYHS, as little as $1 a show, and you can help support it, keep it going. I am working on exclusive Patreon-only kind of video stuff, as well as Discord channel perks and kind of monthly movie watch parties that we'll do. What I want to do with those is things where it's kind of a catch-up night for fans of the show that maybe skip episodes for movies they haven't seen yet. Have a monthly kind of catch-up night where we pick a movie and we watch that from the back catalog. So definitely check that out if you want to. And also ratings and reviews if you listen to it on Apple or Google or Spotify. That helps make the show more discoverable. So I absolutely appreciate that anytime you can do that. This next week, I have my friend Drew coming back, and we are working on what movie we're going to watch. We've had some heated debate over what we want to do exactly. Because it's more of just tossing ideas back and forth, and we haven't nailed one down yet. But he's coming back for that as we're making the march to 200. I am almost to 200 episodes now, which is a number I never thought I'd actually get to. So that's pretty cool. That's coming up. That'll be just after the first of the year. So yeah, Joe, thank you so much for being here this week.
Again, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we'll have you back anytime. So I got to remember to get you for the week before Cajapalooza. You got to lead into Cajapalooza with Joe.
Got some sort of.
So thank you. Yep, thanks. And as far as next week with Drew, that's coming up. So until then, remember, enjoy your movies and let's be excellent to each other. This has been Wait You Haven't Seen.
Oh, wonderful. You're having moved down to the screen.
What the hell's wrong with you? I'm trying to fucking leave here.
Pants are awful baggy. You got anything in there?
Yeah, my dick. You want to see it?
I couldn't help it. I had to capture that. That was too good not to. Like the intro for this show and the stinger at the end of it, I knew the second I heard them in the movie. I'm like, that's going in.
That just, it was funny too because the opening had so much potential. Like the fact that, and man, if they could have just tied things together a little more.
Yeah, and it is what it is. But I'm with you. Yep. Like they could have. There was a lot of potential and just a few things they needed to tweak, writing wise. But I don't know anything else those two writers have been a part of, so it's hard to say exactly what if they have done better before or not. But
I was just thinking, so you're rolling into episode 200. Are you watching like 100 movies a year?
Well, I do once a week, so 52 movies a year for this show.
But that's just for the show.
Yeah.
Are you doing another 50 for fun at all? Or are you? What do you figure?
Got to be at least that because, well, for this show, and then it's probably in a year 20 plus for gore. Okay. Because we do that every other week. So unless we skip any weeks. And then my own movies that I watch just for fun or, right. This past week, I took the week off and I ended up going and seeing Black Panther Wakanda Forever and then Glass Onion. So those are two that were not podcast related that I just wanted to watch. Right. So yeah, I would say probably 100 is not an out of possibility. Which is why I don't read that many books during the year because I'm too busy watching movies and TV shows. Because there's also the TV stuff, Yeah. A season of Highlander. Audie and I are going to wrap up the final episode of the season this week. I think season 5. So there was 18 episodes of that show. Mm-hmm. That we did in the last 3-4 months.
How many seasons are there of Highlander?
There were 6.
Okay, so you guys are rolling into the conclusion of the series.
We're rolling up on the end of the series. We do the movies in between, so we've got one more of the mainline Highlander movies to do. Unfortunately, it's the worst of the 5. We're talking about doing after season 6 of the show, doing the one season of Highlander the Raven, because it was a spin-off that focused on a different character, but it only lasted one season. they tried to make it a little more of a police procedural. She's got like a mortal detective that's there. It was weird, and it just didn't work.
Sure.
We've even talked about doing the animated series, like going through the Highlander animated series too, because that was a short run thing that exists and is even weirder because it's set so far in the future. Yes, it is worse than 2. Absolutely. No, Highlander the Source is worse than Highlander 2.
Oh, geez.
Well, yeah, I know. I never thought I would say words like that, but it's absolutely true. Highlander the Source. And the worst part about Highlander the Source is that it has a couple of moments where I'm like, oh, that is so cool, or that is so good. But then there's so many things where it's like, this was made by people that hate Highlander.
Oh.
I don't understand what they're doing here. Like, none of it makes any sense. So I can't wait to just, we're gonna have a field day with that one. Yes, Highlander 3, The Apology. Highlander 4, well, let's work this TV stuff into it. Which, again, has some really cool moments. Like, Highlander 4 has Donnie Yen in it.
Huh.
And,
that's interesting.
And he's awesome for the few minutes that he's on screen. And, like, it's got the way crazy, over-the-top villain. And it's, it has its moments, but then just for some reason, man, they can't seem to figure out how to make a good movie even after the first one, which, the first one has its faults, but like it just went for it. But yeah, so I watch way lots of stuff. By the way, have you seen the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special?
We watched it last night. Yeah.
That was just fun.
It was just fun. It was so, it was just endearing.
It is. And there's pacing for you right there. It's 45 minutes, and it just breezes right along, and it has a lot of fun with what it's doing.
Doesn't it? And ties it up in a bow at the end.
Mm-hmm.
What was I going to say? I pointed out to my kids. I was like, "Oh, guys, the cartoon. Like this is They did cartoons like this in the Star Wars holiday special.
Yes,
this is where Boba Fett was first introduced.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a cartoon, like in the exact same style. They're like, yeah, that's nice, Dad.
Which is, that cartoon, by the way, is the one of only 2 things in the Star Wars holiday special that's watchable. Because there's that, and there is the bit towards the end with B. Arthur, where she's working in the cantina.
I was gonna say, B. Arthur's in there.
That's watchable, but the rest of it is just painful. Like, I love Harvey Korman, but Harvey Korman couldn't save whatever those things were. And it's like, how are you going to start your holiday special? How about 10 minutes of Wookiees just screaming at each other and no subtitles? That's a brilliant idea. Which is why George Lucas basically tried to destroy the master tapes of every copy of that special.
So I vaguely recall that from my childhood. And I'm of an age where I saw Star Wars in the drive-in in 78.
Mm-hmm.
So I vaguely recall the holiday special, but just it was always somewhere else. Like never really remembered seeing it, but I had images of what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Funny phenomenon. So I'm going to say 97, 98, my brother and I were working together, and we were on a break, and we were going through New Jersey, and we stopped in Red Bank, New Jersey, and went to Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, which is the comic store owned by Kevin Smith. And back then, it was just a regular old comic store. He was not at the level of, media maven, internet phenomenon that he is now. And my brother purchased at the Secret Stash a VHS of the Star Wars holiday special.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I remember he was so excited about it.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, I am going to call it a night because I do have to go back to work tomorrow after a week off, and I don't want to. So I'm going to try and get some rest tonight. Although I
seems
was
like a
I was good
choice.
about keeping my sleep schedule normal all week, so I didn't fall out of that, which is going to help tomorrow. But
Yeah.
I just have to remember how to do my job now. But thank you,
right.
Joe. This is fun. This is great.
It was good.
Um,
Hey, non sequitur. I was thinking about sometime in the near future, and I don't know that I'll do a lot of warning about just hopping on the audio chat for the ANTP former contestants
mhm.
and doing a hangout, because Alex did a couple of those ages ago, and it was just nice to be
Yeah,
around, just to chat with people. And I don't feel like we've had a chance to do it since, at least since the newest wave of kids have joined.
yeah. I would say I would be up for doing that. We can kind of figure out some times and sort of
Right.
advertise it a little bit in there in the former contestants club, and just be like,
Right. I
hey,
was gonna
let's
say
just.
you're recording like what, Wednesdays and Thursdays now?
I do Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I record.
Okay. I
So
don't know. I guess Highlander. I thought do you record Highlander ahead of time and put it out on Wednesday
yeah,
nights?
I record it on Tuesday nights, and it goes out Thursdays, and we record those were the days on
Okay.
Mondays.
Right. And I couldn't remember. I remember seeing. Also, not really sure what day it is most of the time anymore.
Yeah, they all blur together anymore.
Oh.
Then I end up, somebody will say like, "Hey, do you want to come be on my show?" Yeah, sure. And so then I end up doing 4 days in a row because all of a sudden I'm doing one on Wednesday night, and
Right.
I recorded last night for Two Peas and a Podcast. We did a top 5 list of movies to ring in the new year. So
Who is Two Peas in a Podcast? I feel like I should know that.
it's a guy named Gerald Morris, actually down in your neck of the woods. He's in North Carolina.
Okay.
He had done the show for a number of years, and then he took a hiatus. He'd switched jobs. He took a hiatus for a little while, but he's getting back into it again. And I've been on a couple times. He had me on for Movie Chases. We did a list counting down that. He's come on my show for Unforgiven, and then Stir of Echoes later on. He's a good guy. He's been doing the show for a while. It used to be him and a regular co-host, and then life got in the way, and that didn't work out so well. So it's just Gerald now, and he rotates people through. And he does like top 5 lists, and he'll rank stuff, and he loves to do listing. And he's working on. He got nominated to be in the North Carolina Movie Critics Association or something like that.
Well, that's cool.
So he started doing more YouTube kind of critiques of movies that he's been watching to help sort of have a presence that will help that case. So he's a good guy. I like Gerald.
I say, speaking of, I just found out that Steven actually lives like 20 minutes from me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was when the Tadpool Southeast meetup was happening last fall, and I was going to try and go to that. I was actually going to fly into Raleigh, Raleigh-Durham, and then drive over because it was the only way that I could possibly afford to go. But it ended up being that like the only flights back were at 6 a.m. And so I'd have to have left at like midnight and drive 4 hours back to Raleigh to be there on time to fly home. I'm like, I might as well not go. If I don't land until Friday and have to drive the 4 hours, I'm there for part of Saturday, and then I have to leave again. So didn't work out. But yeah, you're right down there. And isn't Dan's down your way too?
He is. He's nearby. He's also like probably 30 minutes away. We've never had a chance. We've chatted a couple of times because he does a board game marathon for charity. Or what? Yeah, I don't think he's kicked it back in since COVID, but we've chatted about that a few times. And he's also on the Twitter, very much involved with local sports coverage, and big hockey guy actually. And I think his son plays for the travel team that looks pretty good. But yeah, it's
when I had him on, it took us a while to schedule because of his son's hockey.
I was bummed the one weekend that was up for that get together that I couldn't make because we had a family wedding up in New England.
Oh, that's right. I remember seeing that. Yeah, you were going to end up being up in New England for that one time. That was kind of funny. What was I going to say? Oh, also Sean Allred from Cheap Seat Cast, who was contestant on ANTP this last year. He's also North Carolina. Some in the water down there. There's a lot of you North Carolinians.
And like Audi's not too far away, and Albisu's just a little bit north, and
Dunaway's and Dunaway and Frankenberger are just a little south of you.
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna say Frankenberger's down in just down in the South Kakalaka.
Yep, and that's where Brian Dunaway is as well. Y'all just got a little cluster down there, and I'm way up in the frozen white North Tundra, all by myself.
Oh,
it's fine. I'll deal with it. But yeah, have a great night, Joe.
You too. I will catch up with you sometime soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, let me know when you want to do the get-togethers in the ANTP. I'm down. I'd love to just hang out and chat.
Out. And I think it's always helpful when some of the people that are, high profile and well connected, and I put you into that category. Like people know who you are, and you've interacted with a lot of people across stuff.
Try to.
It's always it's always helpful when those people are in there. It makes people feel comfortable. Like, oh yeah, I know someone at this party.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. Well, I will talk to you soon. Yep. Bye.
Bye.
And thank you all for hanging out. Yeah, I'm kind of a big deal. Sure. We'll go with that. I've co-hosted TMS because I just basically badgered Scott until he gave in and said, fine, you can do the damn show. Anyway, thank you, Ace, Amy, Joe, everybody for hanging out. Come on back tomorrow night for Those Were the Days at twitch.tv/2dorkstv because we're talking Perfect Strangers, and I can't wait. I haven't watched an episode of that in years, and I'm looking forward to it. But until then, and for the rest of the week, because, well, I've got all sorts of fun stuff coming. Until then, everybody be good, and we'll catch y'all later. Bye.